Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 7 articles in this episode for you, and all the URLs are in the description of the video for you. The first one here is off of Zakana.com. It says, oops, that's not what we wanted. Where did that article go? Hang on. It is out of control. Here we go. Well, White House implicated in Oregon orchard. There we go. Now, digging further into the murder of Lavoy Finicum, keeps jumping around. The ambush of the Oregon refuge and their subsequent arrest. More disturbing information is being revealed. On Thursday's Northwest Liberty News radio show, Jim White and I uncovered a bombshell from the documents I obtained, indicating that the entire operation of January the 26th, 2016, not only Oregon Governor Kate Brown's office, but also the White House. The language that was used in the documents by the officers, along with Red Smith of .com and Paul Preston of Agenda21Radio.com, that the White House orchestrated the entire operation. And when it came to calling the shots, it wasn't Barack Hussein Obama's Sorrento, but rather Valerie Jarrett. Over 600 emails and texts indicating the governor's involvement and knowledge of everything going on in Oregon during the protests at the Malheur Refuge, including some that, secondly, due to newly released documents, at least one Oregon state trooper specifically acknowledged that the protesters were going on the day of Lavoy Finicum's murder was a well-known UN-free zone. Made the statement as though it was common knowledge. So does that mean that Harney County is not a UN-free zone? More chilling and telling statements about where the orders came from to blockade the road and ambush Finicum. At the 7-minute mark, Red Smith details what's in the documents. In the deposition of another officer, that the authorization for the operation that led to the murder of Lavoy Finicum came from the highest levels of a national command authority. Authority in the United States applies to the President and the Secretary of Defense. Has only heard national command authority used in military terms. Keep in mind, Obama has given the U.S. military propaganda material about Americans like the protesters who gathered at the Bundy Ranch in 2014, the unconstitutional land grab of the District of Columbia government and the Bureau of Land Management. So there you go. It goes to trial about wrongful death. It's going to be an interesting one. Here is off of Monica.com. And I'm waiting for the hamster to catch up. And ends with capture of Paris terrorist. Abdelassam was the subject of one of the largest manhunts in modern European history for his role in the terror attacks in Paris on the 13th of November of 2015. Abdelassam was born on 15th of September 1989 in Brussels to Moroccan parents. Between 2009 and 2011, he worked briefly as a mechanic for a Brussels transport company. There are differing reports on why he left his job. One was that he would seldom turn up to work, while his fiancée told the Flemish Weekly Knack that he was sacked because of criminal acts that led month jail sentence. She told the magazine, "My parents thought he should find a proper job before we got married." Describing Ahmad Absoud, thought to have planned the attacks. Abdelaslam's best friends, the unnamed woman, says that it was under his influence that changed. She said that Abdelazam became radicalized in 2014 after Abdelhamid traveled to Syria. In 2013, Abdelazam ran a bar with his brother in the western Brussels suburbs of Molenbeek called Les Beguines, I guess it's pronounced. The establishment clientele was mostly of North African origin. The article that I have here is on BizPac Review. Hamster who's running as fast as his little legs will take him. There we go. DC Mayor launches pricey RAIN program to train teachers on gender and racial. Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser announced a new school program Monday to empower minority girls by training teachers on gender and racial equity. Now, it's saying equity. I want to say racial equality, but it says so, don't send me nasty letters about not reading it correctly. I'm reading what it says. The program called RAIN, Empowering Young Women as Leaders, starting on June the 3rd, and will provide training to teachers in addition to expanding the curriculum on health and gender issues in the DC public school system. And Sam Ford puts out a tweet here that says, amidst concern about DC girls, Mayor Bowser announced a program for girls called RAIN to promote success. The program will cost $1 million in its first year and provide grants to organizations that attempt to boost outcomes for minority girls in academic and social areas. As we continue making the investment necessary to give every student in DCPS a world-class education and the resources and support they need to reach, RAIN will ensure that our young women of color are not left behind. Bowser said in a press release, we know that different students have different needs and that there is no one-size-fits-all solutions. Next school year is just a beginning for RAIN, and in fitting with the goal of the initiative, we will continue to expand the program based on the feedback we receive from the young women in our schools. Bowser's initiative has been in the works for some time and comes on the heels of a similar program for minority boys, who often severely lag in educational attainment and general life outcomes. However, in the case of boys, the city created an all-male school called Ron Brown College Preparatory School in 2016 in order to increase the graduation rate for Black and Latino males. These students tend to have the lowest graduate rates and test scores in the district. In 2016, public school officials talked to female students to determine what exactly would help them achieve greater success. Some of the female students requested programs on building confidence and places to talk about their feelings. This tells me that whatever is done specifically for their needs and not just a simple replication of what we've done for boys, DC Public School Chancellor Antoine Wilson told the Washington Post. It needs to be unique to them, he says. The next article is off BizPac Review, and it says, mainstream media are now cellar dwellers in the polls. Op-ed views and opinions expressed are solely those of the author and do not necessarily represent the views of BizPac Review, it says. Reasonable minds agree that free and sometimes adversarial press is a must for a free society, but this state of grace requires a trade-off that must be honored by national press that is fair to both sides, or they deserve to lose their usefulness and credibility. Now we see that the mighty press has fallen. The media reports through a glass darkly. They no longer know the difference between news and opinion. Journalism. They cannot credibly claim objectivity when most of them are shamelessly biased, self-protective, and subservient to the left's agenda. This is because approximately 9 out of 10 journalists inhabit the political left, and 90 to 92% of them routinely vote for Democrats. It's always been that way. A poll by the Freedom Forum in 1995 revealed that 89% of Washington's based journalists voted for Bill Clinton in 1992. survey, 2/3 of the press disapproved of Ronald Reagan's performance, while his public approvals were 56 to 27%. 2 out of 5 journalists favored government ownership of corporations. National media heightened when Tucker Carlson released emails written by liberal journalists in 2008 that showed hundreds of them were actively working to promote Obama for president. Further, a scheme existed to smear Mr. Obama's critics by labeling them as racist. Yes, become very real. The mainstream media uses fake news to act as an opposition party to Donald Trump and to conservatives generally. Too often the MSM gets it wrong. They fail to tell people what's really going on. They choose to write about issues that make the left look good, and they hide the left's bad behavior. For example, where the self-important, vaulted, pious MSM, Obama's Department of Justice minion Eric Holder subpoenaed Fox News reporter James Rosen, labeling him an aider and abettor and co-conspirator, and invaded the privacy of a reporter by seizing telephone records and personal emails. Holder should have been fired for that. Should have blasted Holder into orbit, but they didn't. Fortunately, all this business of the media keeping people at each other's throats has not gone unnoticed by mainstream Americans whose trust in the media has sunk to new lows. Late in 2016, Gallup poll people found that Americans' trust in the mass media fell to its lowest point in the Gallup poll history, which goes back to 1972. Less than 1/3 of poll respondents had a great deal or a fair amount of trust in the mainstream media. An earlier Gallup poll asked Americans how they would rate the honesty and ethical standards of the people in 22 professions. Nurses had the highest ranking at 82%. Among the cellar dwellers, near the bottom, at about 20%, were newspaper reporters and TV reporters. It's not only bias, dishonesty is not uncommon in the national media. The New York Times says their polls are scientifically stacking the deck. One infamous poll was taken by the Times in 2009 about the willingness of Americans to pay higher taxes for federal health care. Times skewed the polling by offering the questions to almost twice as many Obama voters as McCain voters. No shock they supported higher taxes. The poll was nothing other than a Times deception. Inexcusable. Pollsters learned that far more of the respondents were Obama supporters. They should have thrown out the poll, but the Times ardently favors nationalized health care and a huge federal government, so the con played out. He has said about the national MSM, Americans need to wake up and smell the corruption. No longer can the American media be relied upon to bring us fact-based information. The next article that I have for you is off of CKC Fox, or I'm sorry, OKC Fox, and it's Fox 25. It says, getaway driver arrested after 3 suspects are shot to death in Wagner County home invasion. Arrow, Oklahoma. KTUL, it says. One person is in custody after 3 suspects in a Wagner County home invasion were shot to death Monday afternoon by one of their residents. According to Wagner County Sheriff's Office, the suspect's getaway driver has been arrested. The 21-year-old woman, Elizabeth Marie Rodriguez, turned herself in at Broken Arrow Police Department hours after the shooting, saying she had information. Wagner County investigators interviewed her at the police department and arrested her on complaints of 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of first-degree burglary. Investigators haven't released the names of anyone involved, but say the deceased suspects are between 16 and 18 years old. One of the suspects had a knife and others had brass knuckles, according to investigators. Deputies responded to the home near 9100 South Clearview Drive around 12:30 p.m. after a report of a possible home invasion with shots fired. Upon arrival, deputies found 3 suspects dead and the 2 residents uninjured. Deputy Nick Mahoney says the preliminary investigation shows that the 3 suspects went to the residence with the intent to burglarize the home. They were dressed in black, all had masks on, and all had gloves on, said Mahoney. The suspects broke in through a glass door. After entering the residence, the suspects encountered the homeowner's 23-year-old son, who also lives there. The resident was carrying an AR-15. A short exchange of words, and then gunfire happened, he said. A neighbor down the road said the gunshot sounded like a storm. Well, I thought it was thunder. I just heard something, said Leon Simmons. Two suspects died in the kitchen, and the third ran from the home but collapsed and died in the driveway. Both residents are cooperating with the investigation. The homeowner's son volunteered to go to the sheriff's office to give a statement. Preliminary investigation, it looks like it was self-defense, Mahoney said. Residents in the neighborhood say they've seen an increase in break-ins recently. Within the past 6 months, we've had 2 or 3 burglaries out here, said Simmons. Investigators say it's too early to know if the suspects are connected in any other burglaries in the Tulsa-Wagner area. Well, one thing for sure, they won't be doing that again. The next one we have here is off of libertyheadlines.com, and it says, school cuts budget due to high white student percentage. From North Hollywood, Los Angeles. And it says, outrage has grown at Walter Reed Middle School in North Hollywood as the school faces layoffs and increased class sizes due to a law limiting funds for schools with a higher white student body. The Los Angeles Unified School District provides more funding for schools where the white population is below 30%. In a letter to parents, the district noted the high regarded middle school had been above the percentage for the past couple years. The racial formula was a condition imposed by court decisions dealing with desegregation in the 1970s. You can't make this stuff up. I'm going to read the first comment here. How is this not discrimination? Guaranteed the white families were disproportionately paying the tab in the first place. Time to abandon public schools in those areas altogether. Form homeschools by the neighborhood. I believe our new administration will take the funds with the ones leaving. Discrimination is discrimination. And I agree wholeheartedly with that. There's a lot of really good comments under this if you want to pull that one up and read up on that. But I've always been an advocate of homeschool your kids. Public government-run school system. Off of Freedom Outpost. And it says, once the hamster decides to cooperate here, poor little guy. Okay, new law means you could be the subject of vaccine or medication experiment without your informed consent. Blow this up a little larger here so that we can read it. A new law quietly passed last December contains a waiver of informed, a little bit, hang on. Of informed consent that eliminates the requirement of pharmaceutical companies to let you know if a medication or vaccine given to you or your child is experimental. One of the last Christmas present surprises from President Obama. This is according to Section 3024, Informed Consent Waiver for Clinical Investigation of H.R. 32, the 21st Century Cures Act. It says clinical testing of investigational medical devices and drugs no longer requires the informed consent of the subjects if the testing poses no more than minimal risk and includes safeguards. Who the heck gets to decide what minimal risk is? The pharmaceutical companies, the FDA, medical professionals? How incredibly patronizing. Before taking medication or allowing my children to, I want to know all of the details. What are the risks? What are the potential side effects? What is the worst thing that can happen if we don't take it? informed and make my own decisions, and anything less than that type of condensation that makes my blood boil. My children and I are not big pharma lab rats. I hadn't heard a thing about this until my friend Melissa from Truth Stream Media sent me this horrifying video below, and I knew that I had to tell you folks right away. And there's a place you could sign up to date with the latest news and information that relates to your freedom and well-being. If you want to go there and sign up, you can click that link. It'll take you there. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Who do they think they are? I mean, obviously, we are no more than just lab rats to these people. What in the hell? What happened to how do I have free will if they're imposing this on me? Holy smoke. The next one that we have here is off of, what is it off of? Hippo. Hell, I can't even read that. It's so tiny. I don't know. It'll be the last one, the last link in your list in the description of the video. I can't make it out. It's so in such tiny print. Something about firearmsforums.com. Anyway, to get on with the article, which is the more important part, accidental gun deaths at 114-year low. And the type is very small, so again, we shall blast this up a little bit here to make it big enough to read. 1903, statistics tracking accidental death caused by gun began being collected. The latest number reported as of 2015 by the National Safety Council, or the NSC.org, is lower than that of the 1903, and in fact, lower than at any time in history, said statistic. The total number of unintentional gunshot deaths for 2015 across all ages and genders was the astoundingly low number of 489. The number one cause, according to the NSC, the number one cause of accidental death in the United States is poisoning. This was driven to the top mostly on the unfortunate back of drug overdose, largely propelled by the opioid epidemic, which, all on its own, claims 4 times more lives than homicide with a firearm. According to the Centers for Disease Control, there were 10,945 homicides with a firearm, including justifiable homicide. The CDC states that there were 47,055 deaths due to drug overdose. 3,091 were opioid overdoses. Firearms advocacy groups such as the National Rifle Association and the Second Amendment Foundation, with their continuing campaign stressing safe and responsible ownership, can no doubt be credited with a great deal of the reduction to an all-time low of accidental gun deaths. Why is it then that gun control groups, anti-gun politicians, and media insist on focusing so hard on firearms, claiming that accidental deaths are such a terrifying worry, while completely ignoring the carnage of national drug overdose deaths and the opioid epidemic? Remember, there were 489 accidental deaths with a gun, which would be just 1% of the 47,055 drug overdose deaths. But you, safe and responsible gun owners, are the problem to the gun banners. And that's all I have for you this morning. If you like what I'm doing here and the news I'm bringing you, give it a thumbs up. Don't be afraid to let me know, so everybody gets to hear the news. And don't forget to subscribe. That way you'll stay informed. Have a great day.